Welcome, curious souls, to another bone-chilling episode of Night Owl Stories. Tonight, I tell a tale of a haunted asylum that strikes fear into the heart of locals 50 years after being shut down. There are places in this world that breathe evil, places where the walls hold secrets that should never be spoken. St. Patrick's Asylum was one of those places. Nestled deep in the woods, miles away from the nearest town, the asylum had been abandoned for over 50 years, yet its shadow loomed large in local folklore. No one really knew what had happened there. The official reports were vague, a closure due to budget cuts, some unexplained disappearances, and rumors of horrific treatments. But if you listen closely in town, the older folks would warn you, never with specifics, but always with a tremble in their voice, about the darkness that still lingered in that forsaken building. For years, it remained an ominous relic, its barred windows and crumbling facade swallowed by vines and decay. But curiosity has a way of pulling at people, and it wasn't long before it attracted thrill seekers, amateur ghost hunters, and reckless teenagers eager to prove their bravery. I was part of one such group. It was a cold autumn night when we drove up to St. Patrick's. The wind howled through the bare trees, carrying with it the faintest scent of rot. My friends, Sean, Chris, and Sarah, had convinced me to come. Despite my better judgment, Sean had heard of some old tunnel systems beneath the building and wanted to explore. Chris was the one with the camera, hoping to catch something eerie. Sarah, always a skeptic, thought it would be a good laugh. As we approached the building, a sense of unease settled over us. The entrance door hung open, swaying gently as though it had been waiting for us. Inside, the air was thick, the silence almost deafening. The halls stretched out like mazes with peeling wallpaper and shattered glass scattered across the floor. Faded signs marked the different wings: patient quarters, treatment room, hydrotherapy. But it was the sound that made me pause. At first, it was faint, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper, like someone muttering just out of earshot. I thought it was the wind playing tricks, but then it grew louder, more distinct.
Help me, please.
I froze. Did you hear that? I whispered, glancing at my friends, but they were too wrapped up in their own conversations to notice. We continued deeper into the asylum, Sean leading the way. He was determined to find the entrance to the tunnels, convinced they held the key to some hidden mystery. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. The whispers followed us, growing more insistent with each step. We reached what had once been the treatment room. It was here that the stories of St. Patrick's became truly dark. Electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and isolation chambers had been standard practices. They said the screams of the patients could be heard for miles on stormy nights. The room itself was chilling. Rusted medical equipment lay strewn about, and old broken gurneys were pushed against the walls. But it was the chair in the center of the room that caught our attention. Heavy leather straps dangled from its arms and legs, frayed from years of neglect. Sarah rolled her eyes and approached the chair.
Look, it's just a bunch of old junk. This place isn't haunted. It's just...
The lights flickered. It was so brief, a stutter of the dim flashlight beam, but it was enough to make all of us jump. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet, and the whispers returned. Only now, they weren't whispers. They were screams. Panic shot through me as the sound of agonized, tortured cries filled the room. Echoing off the walls, it felt like we were surrounded by dozens of unseen figures, their suffering tangible in the air. Sean swore and dropped his flashlight, the beam spinning wildly across the room. In its brief flashes, I saw things I'll never forget. Figures, distorted and shadowy, writhed in the corners. Faces twisted and silent screams appeared for just a moment before melting back into the darkness. And then we saw him. A man stood at the far end of the room, dressed in a tattered patient's gown. His head was shaved, and deep blackened scars crisscrossed his scalp as though something had been carved into it. His eyes were hollow pits, and yet I felt them staring right at me.
Get out.
His voice was a low rasp, full of rage and pain.
Get out before they take you too.
Before we could react, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Sarah screamed, Chris fumbled with the camera, and Sean pounded on the door, desperate to get out, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew thick, and that's when we realized we weren't alone. The shadows that had been lingering on the edge of the room began to move, converging on us. Faceless, grotesque figures crawled out from the walls, their arms twisted at unnatural angles, reaching out to us with skeletal fingers. We were trapped. In a panic, we scrambled to find another way out. Sean found a rusted vent cover near the floor and yanked it open. Without thinking, we all dove inside, crawling through the tight, suffocating tunnel system beneath the asylum. The whispers followed us. As we crawled through the darkness, I could feel something behind us, breathing down our necks, just waiting for us to slip. I didn't dare look back. I knew if I did, I'd see those hollow eyes again. Finally, after what felt like hours, we found a way out, emerging into the cold night air, gasping for breath. But something was wrong. Sarah was missing. We called for her, screamed her name, but there was no response. All that remained was the distant echo of a whisper.
Help me! Help me!
We never found her. And now, every night since we left St. Patrick's, I hear those same whispers outside my window. And they're getting closer. Until we meet again, my fellow night owls, under the cover of darkness.